Greetings, my brothers and sisters. Sending gratitude to all of you who are joining in today to accompany us down the rabbit hole of self-exploration through plant medicines. My name is Ryan Sprague, and I'm here to tell you that your frequency is now set and tuned to explore psychedelic medicines and the impact they've made among the countless psychonauts exploring the last true frontier. Buy a ticket and take the ride with me as we get true first-hand accounts of the experiences, benefits, risks, and transformations taking place within the ever-expanding world of psychedelic medicines on This One Time on Psychedelics. Oftentimes in my life, I have the opportunity to meet someone who the conversation flows effortlessly with, and when I dive into their story, I almost always recognize similarities between our journeys, specifically with regards to our psychedelic experiences and our concept of life as a whole. Today's guest on the show is someone who I happen to have that exact experience with, and am beyond excited to share with each of you today. He is a man on a mission to create the sense of community that, for many, is lacking in the world at large right now. With his immense amount of knowledge in fitness, where he combines the realms of kettlebell, steelMace, and clubbell fitness, he is well on his way to growing his community to bigger and bigger heights. And in today's episode, we will be diving into his introduction to psychedelics, what these experiences have done for him, and who he has been able to become as a result of shedding the skin of societal programming to become the version of himself you are each hearing today. So please help me in welcoming my man, Danny Cola, to the show. Danny, pleasure to have you back, man. It's been a long time.
What a great second intro. That's a beautiful intro. God, you're
thanks,
so
man.
good at that. I love it. Thank you, dude. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I don't want to take psychedelics lightly. I want to discuss this as eloquently as possible. And I'm here today too to learn as much as possible from you, because the way you talk about some of these plant medicines is very eye-opening. And yeah, so many things have resonated with me that, you talk about that I'd love to just dive into here today.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. And, what I like to say a lot on the show is that, we take pretty heavy subjects, right? Like, psychedelics are very serious things. They can be, right? Like, there's no shortage of individuals who have taken too much and gone down a rabbit hole that they might not ever come out of, right? But at the same time, I like to look at them in a light way where if we practice certain things with them, like setting intention, right? Like practicing minimum effective dosing and harm reduction, then a lot of times just those three things alone can, bring down and diminish a lot of the potential challenges we've had with them as a society. And I think that, with the rising in popularity we're seeing right now, or the resurgence, I should say, of popularity, I think it's imperative that, we come out there and we say like, hey, follow these types of things, not because they're the objective rules for psychedelics, but because we want to make sure that we create a more positive image for psychedelics than was done in the 60s and 70s. And it's not to talk down on that. I mean, I think that everything happens, beautifully and exactly the way it was supposed to be. But I think that now with all the research coming out and like the ability for people to learn more about them, I think it's a little bit harder for people to go, well, I just didn't know and I ate 8 doses of acid and now I'm, don't know how to reintegrate into my life. It's like, well, that's why I'm so passionate about doing this podcast, because I get to talk to people like you who can share their experiences, who can reflect, and who can dream with me on it. And so, where I really love getting started on this is that, because we all grew up in the DARE, kind of like time period, how did you go from just saying no to potentially saying yes? And I think like, what was the first experience moving forward that really like shifted you and like was like the PEAK experience that led to something beautiful in your life? What was that journey like for you?
Well, I've been like super straight edge. Like I didn't touch any sort of anything, cannabis or, any sort of psychedelic until later in my life, until I was like 25, 24, 25. There were times where I would drink in high school, but it was not my MO, dude. I just was like, I can have fun without those things. I'm an athlete and I take that stuff seriously, and I didn't want to wreck my brain and my body and all that stuff. The first time that really like made me like open up, I want to say, was with cannabis, where I had like several cathartic moments where I was like, wow, this is interesting. But I want to preface with, it was when I was like 24. Like before that, it was just a couple of times of smoking some weed with friends where I was like, oh, that's funny, it's cool. But like, that was just a one-time thing. I'm not going to be doing that regularly. In fact, that's detrimental. And well, at least what I thought at the time.
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm not going to do it. So I played college football, played 4 years. They do drug testing. There were times where, like my senior year, like the last 3 weeks of my football season, where friends would come over all day on a Sunday. We'd watch football all day. We'd get high, and I'm like, they're not going to drug test me. But like the last 3 weeks, they're like, hey, you're getting drug tested. And I was like, oh my God. But it was like a week before, whatever. And like I was panicky. So it wasn't like a crazy thing that I would do every single day. But I want to say I would have these moments where you would, we talk about see the Matrix, and just have like these cathartic moments of like, wow, yeah, we're human. We love each other. We're doing things in this, like we're trying to create so that we can make life easier for people. Very interesting. So why am I going to school and majoring in business when I could start a business? And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm asking these big questions to myself. Yeah. And I don't say that it was all part of like the weed or whatever, but at the same time, like they open you up to some of these concepts and these thought patterns potentially, right? It's not just the weed or what have you. I was brought up in a certain way, and I think the way I do because of all the people that influenced me in my life and what have you. But I want to say that cannabis definitely opened me up to looking at things from different perspectives and being open to some of those perspectives and diving a little bit deeper into those things. And I want to say like cannabis was the first way. And then I want to say little by little, I said to myself, well, I'm not going to start using it every day. It's not good. It's not good. But then I started using every day when I would get home from work, and I would have great thought patterns. And I was getting into meditation at the time. I got into meditation because I wanted to see visions. Okay. And I did this 30-day stint with one of my friends who started the podcast with back in 2007. And I was trying to get him to stop smoking cigarettes. And I was like, how about we do this 30-day meditation thing where, we focus on our breathing, and we do this every single day, and we talk about it on the podcast. And that was like December 2017. And I want to say I was already like 2 years into every day smoking cannabis pretty regularly. And coupled with meditation, I started having the thoughts of like, okay, well, this teaching career may not be the end all be all here. If I'm going to act on some of these thoughts that I'm having, I'm going to have to step out of this role and do things at my own pace and on my own way. And I think, cannabis was the first step into the psychedelic realm. Maybe people don't call cannabis a psychedelic. I certainly think it's a psychedelic.
100%.
It's just something that, we use with minimal effective dosing with smoking or eating it or whatever it is. But then as you experience a little bit more and you have a higher tolerance, you start going a little bit deeper down the cannabis realm. And, I would smoke a little bit more. And then I started getting into edibles, and it's like, okay, 10 milligrams. That was cool. 20 milligrams. That was cool. 30 milligrams. Okay, let's see how far I can push this. And like, I'm pushing my boundaries here. And maybe I didn't necessarily know what my purpose was while I was doing it, but I knew that I liked where I was going. But then you get to that tipping point where it's like, okay, this might be a little too much, and I'm feeling scared now. And then you come back and it's like, oh, that was interesting. Good thoughts and all that. So like to pinpoint when, I want to say like 2017, 2018 with cannabis is where I started to really like have these thoughts about, interesting, cannabis. Like, why is there all this negative talk about it? And then I started learning a little bit more about addiction and what makes qualities addictive and all that. And I'm no, professor in the realm of addiction, but like, coffee, cannabis, there's all sorts of substances, nicotine, sugar, sex, gambling that we can be like pulled towards, and like, some of it is a little bit more physically addicting than other things, but like the cannabis and the habitual part of it was very interesting to me. And I liked it. And it's opened me up, like I said. And I think that's where it started. I'm still there 5 years later, connecting with her every day in the morning, and then sometimes in the middle of the day, and then at nighttime. And I love it. I love Mother Marijuana. She gives me so many positive thought patterns. I'm doing a better job of capturing the ideas that come from them. I think that's something that I've noticed, but at the same time, like I also struggle with the idea of, am I overusing it? Is it serving me today? Like John Beneducci, who we talked about in the Highly Optimized podcast, I would ask him several times, because he's a regular cannabis user, and he regularly uses mushrooms, and I'll get to the mushroom part later. But like I would ask him, like, dude, do you think we smoke too much? And I'm like, should we stop? He's like, why? If it's serving you, like, why would you stop? And I'm like thinking to myself, yeah, okay, if I could do it responsibly, which I do, like a couple of hits and I'm feeling pretty good, and then I'm done. And then I go about my work, whether I'm working out or I'm writing or whatever. And at nighttime too, I love having a hit and eating and just kind of listening to my thoughts. It's one of my favorite things to do, whether they're good or bad. I get to know myself. And I want to say that there was a tremendous amount of growth from regular cannabis use. And still to this day, I really feel strongly about that.
It's beautiful, man. And, a lot of what you were saying, of course, cannabis is one of my dearest teachers in life. And, I've gone through a long relationship with her, and we've had our ups and downs. And, the last down I had was when I realized that it was actually not cannabis at all that was responsible for my ups or my downs. It was me. Right. And I think that that's what, you were talking about addiction. And I think this is kind of like the message that people don't want to hear, right? That it's not the thing that is ultimately addicting. Like, yes, there are things that are physically addicting for sure. But like at the end of the day, happy, excited people that are like don't have trauma, don't just decide to go get addicted to something, right? There's something that pulls people to want to numb out of their lives and to escape. And I think that, with cannabis specifically, that's what I see, is that, and that's what I had to admit to myself, is that when I realized that I was over consuming it and that it wasn't leading to positive results in my life, I had to take ownership for the fact that it wasn't the cannabis plant that was inherently bad. It was how I was interacting with it. And I think that a lot of people, they have the best of intentions, but let's face it, there's no user manual out there for cannabis or really any of these psychedelics. Hey, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the show. I wanted to take a quick moment to let you all know that the doors are officially open for the Conscious Cannabis Collective. And as such, this is the last week you can sign up and receive all of the bonuses we're currently including. This is the last time I will be personally onboarding those of you who sign up with a complimentary one-on-one session, and you'll have the ability to get the Grow with Cannabis course for free during this limited time. For more info on how you can take advantage of this offer, head down to the show notes for this episode and secure your spot today, as we only have so many spots left and they are filling up quickly. Now back to the show.
What's overusing it for you, though?
So for me personally, like I always say that I can't say objectively what overusing cannabis looks like, because I've met people that use cannabis like all day, every day, and yet they're able to take a week off every once in a while, right? They're able to like create and like manifest the life of their dreams with it. For me, it was using it once per night because at that time in my life, I was working at a dispensary that was no longer in alignment with my mission. And I kept feeling this potential come up, and I would get all the frustration and motivation necessary to make a change between the hours of, say, 7 a.m. when I woke up and when I got off work at 7 p.m. And then I would come home and I would interact with a feminine plant, and I would feel content. I would feel warm. I would feel cared for, and I wouldn't make any change. And then I'd go back to the job the next day, and it was a cyclical process. And so when I realized I was in that, the first thing I noticed, because it was actually on an MDMA experience that I realized this, I was able to be honest with myself and go, it's nothing about the plant that's doing this. It's just how I'm interacting with it. And it's not that the plant is bad. And it's not that interacting with it daily is objectively bad. It's just that for me, I realized that pattern was there. And I was, again, I was over exercising. I was doing lots of different things that I became aware of in that moment. But cannabis was the one that, really hit me deep, because I knew, right? I knew that I wasn't overusing it. I knew that I was conscious with it. And that was where it was like a big challenge for me. And so ever since then, I practice only interacting with cannabis on the weekends, because I can still feel that yearning to escape with it if I use it all too often. Does not mean that at this point, after doing that for 3 years, that if, say, there's a week where I'm on vacation, I probably will interact with it every day. But then when I get home, I stick back to the structure because I'm not naive enough to think that, oh, I'm healed now. That won't come up. And I think that's the thing that with plant medicines is that with great power comes great responsibility. You have to really be self-aware because, again, in most cases, especially with cannabis, I mean, God forbid with things like cocaine and heroin, someone's probably going to come do an intervention on you. But with cannabis, like you can pretty sneakily get away with overusing it and not really like have your life affected so as anyone else notices it, but you're going to notice it. And so I think it takes a great amount of power and responsibility to be able to actually go, okay, I'm self-aware enough to realize that this might be actually detrimental right now. Not that it's objectively detrimental, but how I'm using it and the things that I'm using it for are not exactly positive, and I think that, that's why we made the Connect with Cannabis program. I mean, this was born out of my own challenge with it because I think that so many people use cannabis. I mean, it is the most popular plant medicine in the world and also the most misunderstood. So when you have those two things happening simultaneously, it leads to a lot of confusion because then people go, well, how often, I get a lot of people that are like, I'm using it this much. Is that too much? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's do a session. And I can ask you why, if you're like, it helps tap into me and creativity and I'm creating this amazing product right now. And I don't usually use it this much, but I've been doing this for 3 months because it's helping me move forward and unblock myself. Well, then, hey, that sounds at least the start of a positive relationship. But if they're like, I fucking hate my job and I hate my life and I'm not happy in my marriage and cannabis is the only thing that makes me happy. It's like, okay, that might be an instance. Yeah. Where that's such an issue. Because again, feminine energy is amazing to be able to be in creativity, but and also to have all this potential, right? All those ideas that come through and everything like that, but it won't help you take action. And so what I help a lot of people do is just learn hey, it's not the plant's job to know where you want to go in the experience, why you're sitting with it or what you want to get out of it. That's your end of the bargain. The same way that when you sit at Texas Hold'em, if you want to play a hand, you have a buy-in, right? So your buy-in, if you want to actually interact with this plant as a teacher, is to set an intention and be able to actually take action and integrate what the plant teaches you,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just been an interesting journey. And I feel like a lot of folks that say I've interacted with cannabis so much when I was a teenager. And then by the time I got to an adult, I didn't want to do it anymore. It made me paranoid. It made me this, made me that. And for me, it was the opposite. I didn't touch it until my frontal lobe was fully formed, 24, and it's really, and I feel like it has this wonderful benefit for me. My brother too. My brother has the same kind of feels. And, I think there have been times with just maybe not overdoing it every single day, but having too much in one session, you can have almost that ego death come about,
100%.
Especially if it's edible cannabis.
Oh,
It can be very scary. And there's a lot of folks out there and, people joke around. It's like, did you hear that there's a prank phone call, not a prank phone call, but a phone call of somebody who took too much edible weed and they're calling the paramedics. And I've had moments where I feel like, oh my God, I gotta go to the hospital. What's happening here? And you get freaked out and that paranoia really sets in to someone who's not experienced and they start having that feeling. It's like, oh, am I overdosing? Did I get something laced with fentanyl or, what's happening? And, I've had several of those moments where I'm just like, dude, you have to respect this. You can't just willy-nilly take 80 milligrams unless you're Joey Diaz.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Then take 1,000.
Yeah. No matter how jolly Joe Rogan makes edible sound, these are serious things. And it's not just, I don't like comparing cannabis with alcohol either. I think that those are, two different substances. And, you talk about nervous system suppressants and then something that has this this effect where you can connect things together. And there's perspectives that you've never seen before. And it's just it's very interesting. So my relationship with the plant is morphing. Now that I'm about to have a child here in the next 3 weeks, the relationship 110% has to change because I just can't be getting high 3 times a day with a baby. It's just, that's not going to happen. And, there was a time, I want to say 3 months ago, my wife and I, we moved into our new house and we lost our cat. We thought we were painting the house and floors were getting moved around. And the cat was in the basement. We had painters in. Long story short, the cat gets out 6 days. Okay. 6 days, the cat's missing. My wife is 6 months pregnant. And there was a time there where I was like, why am I smoking weed today? Why? It's not serving me. I'm nervous. The cat's missing. Danielle's in this not a good place. And we're looking for, all this stuff. And there was 3-4 days there where I'm just like, I can't, it's not working anymore for me right now. And that was pretty clear. Long story short, the cat came back and I hit the weed for the first time in 4 days. And boy, did that feel so euphoric. And at the end of the day, the what came out of that dilemma with the cat missing was that nothing else matters in this world. Business thing, as long as your family's intact and everything is solid between the people that you love and your, whatever that is, your pets, your home, your siblings, your wife, your kids, like that is the only thing that fucking matters in this world. And after that 4 days and the cat came back and everything was fine and solid. And I'm like sleeping with the cat underneath the blanket after 6 days of her going missing. And, 5-year-old cat, 4-year-old cat, I'm just like, God damn, what an amazing feeling that everyone's back and intact and there's no separation. Because that 6 days, I know this sounds rudimentary, but it was like my wife was agonizing through this whole time. And to see her like that, it fucking hurt my soul.
Oh, yeah.
It hurt my soul. And to come back and be like, oh, it's all good now. And then have that hit, dude, it felt like, whoa, there was like, it almost felt like an MDMA like fail.
Oh, yeah.
When you're peaking on MDMA, it's like all sorts of cathartic messages are flowing in. But like cannabis is interesting like that. And it could hit you very hard if you're not expecting it. And that was my point. Like I wasn't expecting it. It has this huge euphoria. And like I was filled with gratitude. And I was filled with joy and I was filled with all this love. I was like, I don't ever want anything to experience like that again. I want my family to be the best possible. And then everything else is we'll worry about. But that was a huge moment for me. I don't know. Did not mean to derail and talk about.
No,
that,
I mean, it's a beautiful experience. And the one thing I wanted to say was that cat must have had a fucking adventure, dude. Like, did you ever find out where that cat went?
So yeah, the cat. So we were moving the floors, right? We were removing carpet, like this nasty ass carpet. And we had the painters finishing up that day, right? And they opened all the doors in the house, all the doors, the garage, all the windows, and it's a 2,500 square foot house, 2 stories, basement. The fucking cat, we thought definitely got out. So for 4 days, we're like looking for her, going from place to place. Dude, I got several phone calls from people saying, hey, we think we found your cat, but she's deceased in our yard. So I went to somebody's house. I opened up this garbage bag and I had to identify to see if it was my cat. Long story short, it was not. So I'm like, I got to pivot to where I'm looking for her. We're not going to find her outside. Cats typically stay in the house somewhere. So there were several open vents that I didn't think she would have gotten into, but I'm like, I'm done looking for her outside. I'm going to look for her inside. So I got one of those cameras with a string and I'm putting it down. And then little by little, as I start tinkering with the vents, I start hearing motions and movements. And then I started smelling cat piss. And I'm like, dude, something is in the vent. And yeah, I keep saying long story short and I'm making it longer.
No, this is beautiful, man.
Dude, she was in the vents, man. And I had to get an HVAC guy out. I had to get a plumber out. We had to cut her out from the wall. So she was in the vents for 6 days and we pulled her out. I was working here. I had some classes that I was teaching. And while we had the hunch that she might have been in there, my wife was home the whole time and I was still working and training. And she calls me in the middle of my sessions, crying. She was in the vents. She tried calling out to us, but we didn't hear her. Our baby's dead. Blah blah blah. And it was the most traumatizing fucking thing ever. I guess now this makes sense after I hit the joint for it. Like all this emotion. The cat died and it's not dead, and it died and it's not dead. So like, she goes, "Come home, please. Come home, please." So I'm on my way home, 20 minutes into the ride. She calls me and she's like, "Hey, the cat's not in the vent anymore. We think it may have dropped down." I'm like, "Is the cat dead or is it alive?"
I know. I gotta know.
She goes, "I have no idea. Come home." I'm like, "I'm on the way." And my house is like, it's 40 minutes from my gym. So I'm on the way home, and the second I pull into the driveway, she comes out with the cat in her hands. She's alive. She's alive. She's alive. And keep in mind, my wife was 6 months pregnant at the time. So like emotionally, like, and we just moved into a new house and we got all this stuff going. So our foundation is destabilized, and it wasn't a fun thing. But when the cat was home and healthy and fine, it was just like, oh my God. The experience was wild, and I know it's crazy, but it's a cat. But at the same time, like,
dude, my cat's my life, man. I get it,
bro.
It's your buddy, you know.
I know, and she's such a huge part of our family. We have 2 dogs too, and like, it was the most amazing thing when she came back. It was a fucking crazy experience, but like, just having her home and then under the covers after her not being around for 6 days, bro. It's like we put food out, we put all the litter box out, we put all sorts of clothes out. You know, we look like hillbillies. We just moved into this neighborhood, and we're knocking on everyone's door, getting flyers. Like, have you seen this cat? We lost our cat. Like, I'm meeting my neighbors for the first time, talking about how I lost this cat, and it was just like such a whirlwind of emotion. And at the same time, like, I'm trying to keep my business afloat, and like my clients were all like, you know, Danny, there was something about you that was missing that week your cat was gone. And I'm like, you think? You know? Like, I just love my family so much, Ryan. And like, my wife and I have been together for 14 years. We've been married for 5, and we have this life together. And she's been with me. We've been with each other since we were 18, 19. And through all the changes in my life, whether it was being a high school teacher, you know, being a trainer in the beginning before a high school teacher, going back to college to play football, like, supporting me this whole time. And like, I'm lucky because I've had this genuine love reciprocated with a woman for the last 14 years. And I also want to, you know, attribute to my growth and seeing things in so many different perspectives. Like that love is another reason why I see things the way I do. Like, I'm lucky because I have that. I could be myself and still have this woman love every ounce of me, and vice versa. And it's just one of the most amazing experiences that life can bring you, and that you could experience as a human, is have that loving connection with somebody. And it's real. It's such a real fucking amazing thing. And yeah, dude, to see her go, you know, in that emotional downward whatever when the cat was gone, it was heartbreaking. And then, you know, a piece of our family was gone. So we have this cartoon book made of our son's adventures with the 3 animals, and it was like a you know, just a book we had made especially, and it has the dogs and the cat in there. And I was like, we can't read this to our boy if the cat's not around.
I know.
You know what I mean? And I keep going back to, I know this is like just first world problems, but at the same time, like, everyone's home and back, and it just feels so good. And that moment that I had my first hit after 4 days, going back to why this is all the thing, like, if you take time off of marijuana or cannabis, weed, whatever you want to call it, I'm using so many different terms because like, we're just having this conversation here. After not using it for a little while and then getting hit with it, you know, a couple hits after 4 or 5 days, God, the matrix is so clear. It's like, wow. And you get all this clear perceptions of what you know, what reality is, beyond reality, synchronicities in life and love and business and creation, that like, it hits you so profoundly. And if you don't capture those thought patterns somehow, some way, then, you know, you won't be able to integrate it as much. But there's so much going on and so fast. But at the same time, like, I don't want to spend my time writing all my thoughts down. I want to enjoy the moment. So like, I'm just I go back and forth here. Maybe you could relate with that.
What is up, everybody? I hope you are all enjoying the show. And I wanted to stop by real quick and share a little bit about our latest podcast sponsor, Freedom Builders. Now, Freedom Builders are a team of graphic designers, website creators, videographers, social media marketing experts, and coaches that build out your custom online business from A to Z. This is a done-for-you service, which means they do the work for you while you get to put your focus back on what you love most, which is coaching your clients and bringing in sales. Now, as a former online fitness coach, Mike knows where your struggle points are and exactly how to help you overcome them. This is why he created Freedom Builders, so that you can scale your business while protecting your time and your energy. Now, you guys know that delegation is a business superpower, And you can activate this superpower today by scheduling a complimentary call with Mike at freedombuilders.com so you can start building the freedom that allows you to take your business to the next level. Alex and I recently connected with Freedom Builders for our Connect with Cannabis build out, and we could not have been happier with the results. With Mike and his team, they were able to go through an outline and create a personalized program for our experience, develop our brand identity, build and design a custom branded webpage, professionally edit our program video content, custom design all of our slide presentations, automate our email marketing sequences, create a seamless payment system for our offer, design unique infographics for our social media content, and guide us through our proven launch blueprint to generate organic leads through our social media. So if you're a coach, facilitator, or healer listening to this ad right now, and you are looking to put freedom back into your life, once again, go to freedombuilders.com and book your complimentary call today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of the show, and I'm wishing you the best day ever. You know, it's so funny, man. I mean, the first thing I'll say is what you went through there is a psychedelic experience, right? Like I'm, famous for saying that, sobriety and reality in and of itself is a psychedelic experience. Like think about it. Where souls having a human experience, allegedly, I don't know, but that's what I believe. We're on a rock floating in what's allegedly just empty space, right? Could be plasma, could be water. Some people say, who knows? We have these planets that, depending on what planet it is, it might be a planet, it might be a moon. We don't really know anything. It's almost like we woke up, we just came to driving a car, but we've never driven a car. And we're kind of like, I noticed that this thing makes it go faster. This thing breaks. Where are we going? I have no idea. Do you want to just keep going this way? Sure, I guess. Like that's where we're at all the time. And I think that, one of the other reasons that I interact with cannabis only on weekends that I forgot to mention earlier is because, when you look into indigenous cultures and you look into the shamanic, history of cannabis being used as a teacher and ally, what they say is that, if you only interact with cannabis 2 times or 3 times per week, it preserves the transcendental and spiritual properties of the plant. And for me, I'm at the stage in my life where I'm like, I really want to dive into what this plant can teach me about my existence. And then I want to have time to integrate that into my typical day-to-day reality so I can see massive changes. And so typically the way my experience with cannabis works is that normally it's Saturday and Sunday. I'm done with work for the week. Work is normally when I'm most prone to stress and most prone to numbing out. So I do that period sober to make sure that I'm like keeping track of everything emotionally that's going on and mentally and everything like that. Then on the weekends, I hang out with my girlfriend, right? We're always together anyway, but I'm specifically hanging with her the whole day and I'm getting absolved into feminine energy. She's pulling me out of my structure because I tell her to, right? So we'll wake up and instead of like, no, I need to do this first. She's like, let's go get a coffee and walk the beach. I'm like, perfect. So we do that. We come home later on. I interact with cannabis in a ceremony with her. I ask a specific question, set an intention. We go through the ceremony and then I write down some things that were ideas, right? Like kind of the high points of that experience. And then so the last one, I'll give you an example. So like I was experiencing, since the Aubrey podcast dropped, I've had got 150 calls book in the last 2.5 weeks. So it's been a little crazy because it was just me and Alex. Right. And so, we had to bring a whole sales team on. We grew the business very quickly. And so here I was
from the one podcast with Aubrey,
one podcast, dude. And they're still coming in. I mean, it's nonstop and it's amazing. Dude, it's the greatest thing ever, right? It's exactly what I wished for 3 years ago when I started this. And now I get to be in it, right? Because that's what manifestation is, right? Like you work at it hard enough and all of a sudden it just fucking hits. And so here I am stressing out over it, being like, oh my God, there's so many calls. What are we going to do? Right. And so I realized the first hit I take that week, right? The first hit, I realize it just hits me like a ton of bricks. Like, dude, why are you putting so much pressure on yourself? Like, this is your dream. You're getting to live your dream. Like, the fuck are you stressed out about? So I literally, the main takeaway was, curiosity surrounding putting pressure on myself. That's what I wrote down. And so the next week, after I, got out of that weekend and I was done interacting with cannabis for the week, I would notice when I would start to get stressed out and I would start to go, am I putting too much pressure on myself right now to perform? Yep. And is that pressure actually real? Nope. All I get to do is show up for calls, meet people. And if they're right for the course, sign them up and keep moving, right? It's awesome. And so that was like an example of like how I interact with cannabis and what the messages I get are and how I integrate them. Because during that week, I'm sober. So I'm integrating that message into my life and I'm seeing where I might get hung up. So maybe, for instance, this I don't think I can pull out a real life example, but let me give you a fake example. So
Sure.
let's say that, I'm integrating this not putting pressure on myself lesson, and I start noticing that for some reason I'm experiencing a lot of pressure when I think about podcasting. So in the next weekend I go, okay, I've integrated this, not putting pressure on myself thing, but for some reason this is a sticking point surrounding podcasting. What's that about? Then Cannabis will give me a download. Okay, let me put that into action the next week. And so this is how I've been interacting with it for years now, for the last 3 years. And as I've done that, I look around, and again, I do a lot of different things. It's not just cannabis or plant medicines. Like I was telling you, I'm in the modern mystery school. I do a lot of shamanic work. I work with so many different energy healers, and coaches, but there's a strong correlation between interacting with cannabis and the way that I have and the lessons I've learned, and integrating those lessons and seeing big changes in my life. And so, I think that, having this type of relationship with cannabis has benefited me a lot. And that's where, literally 2 years into this, I realized, holy shit, I bet other people have this same challenge. And so then I started guessing and being like, hey, I'm going to put my thing out there and see if it attracts. Well, it fucking attracted like crazy. And now I'm like, oh my God, I get to run this program called Connect with Cannabis. And I'm making Grow with Cannabis right now to cultivate a sacred relationship through cultivating the plant, because I've done that for the past 10 years too. And so it's just fucking wild, man, what these things can open up for you. And again, it's like, there are many different things that can lead to this. It doesn't have to be psychedelics, right? But I think that at the age we're in right now, especially in Western societies, we don't have a lot of time or the ability to go take 5 years off and go become a monk and, keep our house intact and, everything, because we don't have that kind of finance, right? I know I don't, and I know most people don't. And so it sounds great in theory, but, sometimes we need that rocket ship. And for me, psychedelics have been that rocket ship, and again, with great power comes great responsibility. It's not easy. They're to be respected. But if you learn how to interact with them in a way that you can respect them, holy shit, at least in my experience, you can get some profound stuff coming on.
Yeah, of profound pieces of information. I think this is what folks who haven't experienced psychedelics are missing. It's like there's downloads that come through. There's information that you are realizing that was like, whoa, wow. And it's like there's that strange feel like it's been in front of me this whole time.
Yeah.
But there's something that you like, it makes you believe and feel so intensely. Like MDMA, for example, is something that I got into later on in my life, 27, 28, and cowboying it on my own, at raves, concerts, whatever you want to call them, sometimes bars. And, and I want to say it's only been about a dozen times, to be honest with you. So it's not a crazy amount, but enough to be like, whoa. Yeah. And I remember the first time I did it, there was this immense confidence. And I didn't necessarily think that I can read people, but I felt like I could read people's minds. And I felt like I was connecting with people so intensely that I was like, wow, very interesting stuff. And then I want to say maybe the fourth time I interacted with MDMA at a DJ show, with a couple of really close childhood friends, guys that I was in a band with for a long time, and we wrote music together. So we're going to see this DJ, and unbeknownst to me, I'm having this communication with source or God, and there were these downloads coming through about how life was, it's going to hit you pretty hard, and be ready and be prepared, because in the next few years you're going to be a really important piece to how humanity unfolds. I kept getting this message to be prepared for this wild ride. I'm like, what? And I'm like, and I'm listening to it more, and it never felt so real in my life. Yeah, this is be ready for this. You're going to have I didn't hear about a business or whatever, or podcasting or any of that stuff. It was just there's going to be knowledge coming your way, and it's your duty. It's what it felt like. It's your duty to put this information out there, and you're going to be a key role to how humanity pivots. And I was very, 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 very I don't know what the word is. That's hard to describe, but it was a profound moment. Afterwards, I was just so disbelief. Did that just happen? And at the next few days, it was just very just empowering. Like, oh my God, those feelings were real, and there's something here. And it was when I was in transition from teaching into going into being a trainer again full time, and just taking with whatever was coming through and just go for it. And that was like one of my first times with MDMA where I was just like profound like experiences where I was just like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. That just happened. 8 weeks later, I had another profound experience just like that at another show, and all these downloads kept coming in. And it was right before the pandemic, and I just kind of stuck with whatever was feeling true to me, and that was building a community around mace practices and kettlebells and clubs. And it was one of the hardest things to not be a teacher anymore, because it was so like it was a very it was a good gig. It's a fun job. I'm doing the things that I want to do, teaching PE, health, and driver's ed. And I have, freedom here and there, but like financially you're pretty limited. And it was hard to be like, no, we're not going to do that again. But like, I remember sticking to my gut. I'm like, nope, we're not going. We're going to do this, and we're going to just keep on rolling with it. And 3 years later, I'm here in my own space building the healing hut, I like to call it, underground fitness studio. And I don't know that came through. Like, I don't know if that was the feelings that were coming through. I don't know if I was having a conversation with God or whatever the fuck source is, but I remember having those crazy feelings and sharing that feel with one of my friends who actually introduced me to that guy, John. And she's the one that gave me the Becoming Supernatural book. And then when I read the Supernatural book and learning a little bit more about Joe Dispenza and deep meditations, learning about chakras or the zones, like Paul Chek calls them, and then having these thoughts about, wow, this is something that was like the missing piece. Let me ask you this. Have you ever thought about the chakra system and like the way music is written or the way music works? Do you know how to read music?
I know how to read tab. I've played guitar forever, but I did learn how to read sheet music, but never enough to stick to it. I did learn it in like a band class in high school.
So like tabs is good too. Like you have a good understanding of what you're looking at on a sheet and then mimicking it on your hand and what have you. But I remember reading the Joe Dispenza book and thinking about the zones and the chakras like a staff of music, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, the different colors and the rainbow spectrum, all the we call nerve plexuses from the roots all the way to the crown. And I started looking at reality like creating musical notes, and like coherent musical notes was something that was in tune. There's chords, it's rhythmic, it's catchy, it makes people feel lively. And I started thinking about like a nice song, a coherent song, a tuned rhythmic song that's catchy as fuck is like a situation unfolding in your life that's very coherent and supposed to be, and it feels good and it's loving. And I was looking at sheet music, and I was like, is the chakra system and your third dimensional reality just like you're writing music and you're the composer, or are you the person that's creating the song? And I just started looking at music and reality like they were synonymous. They were like the same kind of thing. And I was looking at the same thing with food and taste and how you cook. Different things merge together to make a really coherent flavor, a taste, a feel of food. So like this is third dimensional reality, and it's along the same type of lines, this vibrational frequency, this energy that comes together. And I was having these moments, and I was thinking about that on that MDMA trip. And I was like, am I just writing my own song? I've written so many songs as a teenager when I was in a band. I'm like, am I just writing a song now? And we're calling the song reality. And a huge concert or a concerto is like the string of songs put together that make your life. And I deeply meditate on this, and I just can't get around not feeling that way. If you are in an unknown place, like your heart has nothing but to shine itself out there, and your reality kind of just morphs to whatever is inside. And I truly and firmly believe that. And we just got to keep practicing and tuning our guitar, so to speak, tuning that instrument, and keep putting pieces together that align, that are coherent, and that keep coming out with snappy, peppy songs or situations in reality, rather.
Hello, everybody. I hope you are all enjoying the show. I wanted to stop by and fill you in on our brand new, completely free to join Facebook community called the Highly Optimized Ceremony Circle. I imagine many of you are aware of our newest creation within Highly Optimized, which is the Connect with Cannabis certification program. Alex and I are having so much fun empowering coaches with the skill set of coaching with cannabis and helping them up-level their coaching practice that we wanted to create a place where anyone could join to ask questions, receive free information on how to work with cannabis in the way we teach in the program, and be able to gain clarity around how to get the best results with their clients in order to become financially independent in their coaching practice. To join, hop over to the link in our Instagram bio and send us a request. It is our intention to assist as many coaches, facilitators, and healers as possible in the important work they are doing in the world. And if you are looking to join a community of like-minded individuals just like you, who are passionate about helping their clients achieve the highest quality of life possible, the Highly Optimized Ceremony Circle is for you. I am looking forward to speaking with all of you in the group, and as always, enjoy the show. What I've realized, I just recently attended Paul Chek's shamanic sound healing workshop, and he literally said that exact thing. He's like, the 7 chakras correspond to the scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then do, right? Being the octave. And I think that really, like, we are a musical instrument, right? And that's what I've realized is that all we do with regards to health, the food we put into us, everything has frequency to it. And so essentially we can tune our instrument to bring in different realities. And this is essentially what manifestation is based on, is about tuning your frequency into such a high, elevated emotional state and vibrational state that the only thing that naturally occurs is you attract the same things that are in, harmonic resonance with your own vibration. And I think that, with regards to what you were talking about MDMA, I've had, very profound experiences with MDMA. One that sticks out to me right off the bat is the one I had in Las Vegas, where I literally realized that I was using cannabis unconsciously, and then Highly Optimized was born as a result of that. And I think that MDMA is kind of the sleeper medicine, right? Because everyone knows that it's the heart opener. Everyone knows it's amazing. It's euphoria. It feels like ecstasy. But, a lot of times, like, I hear people talk about ayahuasca. It's like, yeah, you'll take action on your life after that. Well, MDMA, at least in my experience, I've taken the most action after an MDMA experience. Besides cannabis, that's the number one for me, that, every time after an MDMA experience, there is immediate radical change. I remember there was a challenge that Rachel and I were going through, and I had been communicating to her something of like, hey, I don't really feel safe to be myself right now around you because I feel like sometimes it's not well received. And, before the MDMA experience we had, that was a really touchy subject. Right after that MDMA experience, it was the day after, we were both tired. We stayed up late. We had a great time. And, I remember her just saying to me, like, I saw what you were talking about, and I'm really sorry. Like, I agree with you that, like, I had this pattern of trying to control you when in reality, you're just you. Like, I was putting a story on it that, like, if we were at a party and you were like talking to someone else, not even a girl, just like talking to other people, that you were ignoring me, but really, like, you were just fully in your heart and letting your heart lead you to whatever conversation was stimulating. And so, like, it was a really powerful experience. And since then, like, literally, it was like we took that pattern and removed it from our relationship. It never came back. And now we're such a power couple with regards to that, and pretty much everything else too. I think that, what you were speaking to with, having intimate love in your life is so powerful. And I think that for me, every psychedelic experience I've shared with her is a powerful bonding experience. When we've done psilocybin together, peyote, 5-MeO DMT, MDMA, all of these things, LSD, have brought us so much closer together. And why does that happen? It's not that it's just bringing us closer together. It's bringing us closer to ourselves. And therefore, as within, so without. So as we know ourselves better, we take our armor off more around each other. And that ultimately brings us closer together. And I think that,
love that.
Like I said, in the world that is lacking of connection, I forget if it was this episode or the last one, but, in a world that's lacking of connection, I'm not saying this is the only way to get there, but if the doomsday calculator is right, and we have about 10 years to get our shit together in a big way, and Jamie Wheel talks about this in Recapture the Rapture, we need some rocket ships. And again, breath work can be a rocket ship. There's a lot of things out there, but for me, I know what psychedelics have done for me. And that's, a big part of what I talk about is like, hey, this has worked for me. I don't recommend them to anyone. I recommend doing your own discernment journey and discovering if these are right for you and your experience of life. But I think specifically what you were talking about, I've been a long time fan of electronic music. I've had unbelievable experiences at hundreds of different shows and festivals I've gone to. And Jamie Wheel dives into this in Recapture the Rapture, where he went to his first electronic show and he was blown away. He took LSD and he went to one of these shows. I think it was the younger years. And he was just like, these guys are literally shamans, basically, because whether or not they don't categorize themselves as that, but like they're doing energy work through music. And essentially what they're doing is like, there'll be these bass drops and then this big lead in. And then like when the bass drops, it creates this like frequency that goes through our root chakra and all the way up to our crown. And he was like experiencing this, being like, wow, this is really wild. And the Grateful Dead was very similar, where they take you on this journey. And if you're just there and you're in your left brain, you're kind of like, what is all this noodling? But if you're there in a psychedelic experience, or if you've integrated and like got into your right brain enough, you can go there and be like, wow, they're taking us on like an odyssey, essentially, like a journey, a story. And I think that's so powerful, man. And I think that, you know, really like what I've found is that psychedelics are only illuminating what's already there. And I think that's like the ultimate message that they wish to give us is like, hey, it's not us that's doing this. It's just we're bringing down the limiting beliefs, patterns, programs that currently are blocking you from experiencing this joy all the time. And then your mission, the work, if you will, is really after the experience to go, okay, what's standing in the way of me being able to access that all the time? But I think where people get lost with psychedelics, especially right now in the rise in popularity, is they end up mistaking the psychedelic as the requirement for accessing that state. When in reality, it's just simply the training wheels that can help you get there before you actually do the inner work necessary to be able to access that on a more regular basis. You know, it's hard to do there all the time because we do have bills and things like that that ultimately can stress us out. But I think that everything becomes a training ground once you experience that of like, okay, what can I go through in my daily life and in my weekly and monthly and years and whatever that allows me to keep my cool at a center of peace so that I can stay in that vibration constantly. And then if I'm able to stay in that vibration, well, then the people, places, and things that attract to me are directly in alignment with what my soul is yearning for, what my heart is calling for. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things I found with psychedelics.
Yeah. Well, if you look at like a guitar never stays in tune. You always have to tune it up.
Yeah.
No matter, like you see musicians like tune it up in between songs.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like why like we do yoga or swing mace or meditate. It's to just put us back into tune, so that we can stay in those vibrational states or even surpass them, like connect to something that's even more beyond. Because like, as we talked about in that first podcast, like consciousness keeps going deeper and deeper and there's never really an end to it. And it's this massive continuum. And if you've been so deep on, you know, mushrooms or LSD, you've realized, wow, consciousness is just this never ending continuum. And in the third dimension, it seems like it's time. Like we're born and then we live and then we die. But it seems like when all that is obliterated, it's just consciousness is this never ending continuum. And maybe we did speak in a past life, and maybe we are connecting here again because we spoke several times in past lives. I said this to my wife all the time. Like, did we get together in a past life? Like, why is this so strong and such a loving force? Have we done this hundreds of thousands of times prior? Who the fuck knows? And maybe we'll never know. But like, yeah, this is this never ending continuum. And going back to like the guitar analogy and tuning ourselves up, like this is just why like we get into fitness, or at least this is why I'm discovering why I love fitness so much, is because I'm constantly tuning myself up. And I think that's why I like the mace so much, because it's like it's offset and like your weak sides have to stabilize. The swinging motion works the fascia, and this fascia is this, I mean, we don't know much about it, but it seems like it's the internet of our body. It's constantly communicating with itself.
That's a great analogy.
Right. So like another time on psychedelics, I've deeply thought, and I don't even know which psychedelics, maybe this is a cannabis thought, but then I'm thinking about the internet, think about fascia. I think about the internet, fascia, mycelium, the way it connects with the world. I think mycelium is the fascia of the earth.
Yes.
And the earth is to a human being. So like if we look at the earth as an actual being, the mycelium that's covered in its entire roots all over the world is the connective tissue of the earth. I think the internet was made as like this just symbolic representation of connective tissue of the earth, of mycelium. I also think that dark matter, even though we don't know
like
much
the quantum
about it,
realm too. Yeah.
It works like how these systems work. And they're just a mimic of what we already know. And I really feel like there's something to the fascia. If we understand the fascia a little bit deeper, maybe there are things that we'll be able to let go a little bit better physically, unconsciously even. You know, I think that's why a lot of my clients really like coming here, because you know, there are moving and swinging things, and they are developing stronger fascia, maybe without them even realizing that they're coming up with these healing modalities themselves. You know, they come here and they work out and it's great. And it's this awesome community environment within, you know, every hour, whether it's a small group or a one-on-one, but we're swinging mace, we're swinging clubs, we're swinging bells, we're doing a lot of body weight stuff. I'm teaching them about central nervous system, being sympathetic, being parasympathetic, the merging of those two things. Using these tools can balance that out. Doing different eye movements and motions are working your fascia system and balancing the right and left part of the brain and getting people to really understand these types of things. Like they're having their own psychedelic experiences. They don't even know. And like they're like a deep psychedelic experience is very similar to an amazing meditation. You know,
Yes.
There's just things that are so coherent and beautiful that you're like, yes, of course. Now, motherfucker, write that down.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what your thoughts are about the whole fascia, mycelium, the internet, dark matter, neural networks, and their symbiotic connection. Break down some of your information on what you think that might be.
Well, I mean, I think it's exactly what you said. I mean, what comes to me intuitively is the idea that, like, you know, essentially it's almost like when, God, I've seen this in some movie. I'm trying to figure out what it is, but it's almost like, okay, so think about it this way, right? So you're a musician. So you've had the experience of a song singing you or a guitar playing through you, right? Where it feels like you're not even really playing it. So
Yes.
what's happening there, right? So when we're creating the internet, it's almost like the universe is playing us and creating itself within us. And I think that, like, when we really look at like what the great yogis say and what all the great, you know, ancient spiritual teachers and modern day spiritual teachers say, they say that, like, essentially what their best hypothesis is that if God is everywhere, right, and everything, or source, quantum field, whatever you want to put in there for
Whatever
a
you
term.
want to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll use God. But like, if you want to think that God is everything, well, then if we are something, then we come from everything. And so God must be trying to experience itself in infinite different, you know, different capabilities and different constituents, you know, to be able to understand itself at a deeper level. And so we really are the all playing itself out in individual experiences. And I think that within those individual experiences, like Rupert Sheldrake talks about, there is this morphic resonance field of this like data of information, right? It's also the Akashic realm, as you've heard before, or people listening may have, you know, heard it referenced before. And I think that, you know, if we allow the clouds of the left brain to just like go away for a little while through meditating, through taking a walk, through having passionate lovemaking, whatever it is, right? All of a sudden, the sun that is like pure intuition, right? That is pure knowledge just flows through and we get downloads. And what is a download? Like, I think it's really just like accessing the senses that we've been taught to believe aren't real, like clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, and intuitive knowing.
Yeah.
But psychedelics led me directly to experience those things. Then learning about it through people like Paul Chek, I was like, okay, I'm going to integrate that. So I've been working with a psychic for the last 9 weeks. Yesterday was my 9th appointment, where I'm training my psychic senses. And I got to tell you, man, it's fucking crazy. And I don't even begin to know how to explain what I'm doing, but I'm doing readings on people, right? We have like, she has like 16 friends she calls on to work with like the people she's training. And yesterday, like literally as soon as I tune in, I see this rose. There's a big process I go through, but basically the last part is you picture the screen, you have a rose there, and then you have the person on the phone say their name 3 times, and you watch what color the rose turns. And so immediately I saw an orange color. And then, you know, then you give a gift to this rose, and then you start to see what the gift transforms into. So immediately I saw an ocean and I saw trees, like really deep, like beautiful Pacific Northwest, like just like that, like, you know, temperate rainforest type feel. And so immediately I was called to be like, are you an earth sign? Yes. Are you a Taurus? Yes. Do you have pain on the right side of your body? Yes. Does it go into your hip? Yes. Do you have a tight right psoas? Yes. Like it was just, and then also I see some static down the back of your leg. Do you have sciatica? Yes. So like, there's just these things coming to me that I don't know where they're coming from. And my logical mind the whole time is like, hey, what's going on up there? But I'm just choosing to not give into it. And I think that, you know, when we look back into antiquity, right, I think we talked about this a little bit in Highly Optimized, there are these things that the right brain allows us to just experience. Like, for instance, you know, if you are in a deep meditative state, or we'll use psychedelics because it's on brand for the podcast, if you're interacting with cannabis, specifically after you haven't interacted with it for a few days, right? So like for me, if it's Saturday and I haven't interacted in 5 days and I interact with cannabis and I get a really beautiful effect going, and I ask the question, who am I? Well, what I realize is that I'm not actually experiencing looking for the answer. I'm experiencing the question itself. And so like there are these things that happen that I don't even know how to begin to explain. But what it's all pointing back to is that something is creating through us, that we're a channel. And I think that's where the internet, that's where like these connections come from, right? Because again, it's hard for the left brain to go, yeah, there's a connection between mycelium and the neural networks. I see what that looks like, but like, what do you mean, right? The right brain is the one that just goes, there's something there. And again, like I said in Highly Optimized, we don't need to figure out what that is because that is the mystery. That would be opening our Christmas presents before Christmas morning, And I think that like that the more mystery you have in your life, the better and happier you are. Why are kids so happy? And why does it say in the Bible that if you want to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must enter the mind of a child? Because the mind of a child is curious and is full of mystery. Imaginary friends, right? They haven't been told what's real about life yet. And I think what psychedelics have the potential to do is to help us unlearn. Like my buddy Cal Callahan has a podcast called the Great Unlearn Podcast. I thought it was one of the best names because really, depending on what path you take, I'll mention my path and I imagine you're on the same one. The first chapter of my life was about learning things and knowing things. The second half was about unlearning everything and knowing nothing. And I've never been happier in my life. And so again, it's just a strange correlation I've seen. I don't know if it applies to everyone, but it seems like we have a very similar experience where it's like, we don't know the answer. And that's what makes it so fucking fun. And I think people get really into this pickle where they're like, no, I know things. And it's like, well, cool. If you want to open your Christmas presents for Christmas morning, and really you're just hoodwinking yourself because I don't think there's any objective truth. Quantum physics proven that. So who knows what the real answer is, but that's my insight on that, man. Thank you for asking that question because it brought a lot up.
Sure. Have you ever learned or read any of Donald Hoffman's work?
Donald Hoffman, no, but I'm writing that down right now. What's
He's
some of his?
His book is called The Case Against Reality, and he talks about how we see objective reality isn't objective at all. And I don't want to try to do what Donald Hoffman talks about. But he basically talks about how we are, we look at reality like it is a monitor, and the icon that's on the monitor isn't necessarily really what that is. There's a whole bunch of ones and zeros making it so that we can interface with it. And that's basically what reality is. It's a user interface, and the zeros and ones and the coding behind it is still what's behind that reality, but it's not good enough so that we could interface with it. We're interfacing with the screen, the blue icon, the file in there, but we really know it's not the file that's in there. It's just a bunch of zeros and ones. So he talks about this from a scientific standpoint, and he's talked about like there's got to be something behind the veil, and it's very interesting. And there were these, I forget what is, World Science Fair or something, where this dude in a wheelchair is like going through like these panel of scientists, and they're talking about what they think like where existence comes from and like what is the universe and what's going on. And Donald Hoffman basically talks about this reality that we experience is just an interface. It's nothing that has to do with really what objective reality is. And there are so many people out there that are just like, get the fuck out of here, dude. But like, he's a high level scientist that talks on panels at world science fairs against other scientists. And there are other scientists that are entertaining his thought. And it's very interesting. There's several optical illusions that we can kind of see and perceive with our eyes that look like they're there, but they're not really there. It's like the same thing with our hearing. Like we can hear pitches and we can see colors up to a certain frequency. And then after that, our physical human self isn't capable of picking up those frequencies anymore. It doesn't mean that they don't exist.
Exactly.
Right? So how the fuck do we measure that then? It's still there, but we don't agree that it's still there because we can't interact with it. But can we measure that? But it exists, but does it? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%.
So like, yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, dude, you're speaking my language.
Yeah. And I can talk about this till I'm blue in the face. And then there are other people that like I try to explain this to, and they're like, dude, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? Things that are objectively real and not, is it there or is it not? You know what I'm saying? It's just like,
yes.
Look, listen, dogs can hear things that we can't. That doesn't mean if we don't hear it, it doesn't mean it's not there. So what, like, how high does those frequencies go? how deep, what's the depth of it? It's inconceivable to the human brain. Like maybe it's not. Maybe we can develop to a point to where we're like, super crazy conscious, whatever, Paul Chek status, clairvoyant, clairsentient, and whatever all the stuff he is, and pass through separate lives, come back to this third dimension and help heal. Like maybe we can do that. I don't know, but I'm going to keep myself open to the potential that maybe we can elevate our conscious growth to that point and really be of service to humanity. Aubrey Marcus has Fit to Serve. I got to imagine, and I've never been to it, but I got to imagine that, or Fit for Service, I think it's called.
Yep.
I have to imagine all the modalities he's trying to teach is basically to get people to be in tune with the things that are possible, the potentials that are available to us. And it's just getting yourself tuned enough to get into those frequencies and those energetic patterns or whatever you want to call them, so that you could, again, integrate in this third dimension, because that's where we're living.
Yes. Be here now.
Even though we're omnipresent levels of consciousness, really, we're having this experience here. So why does it matter? And I don't like to get down that nihilistic road, because I've been there before. It's like, why does anything matter? And that's very slippery, dangerous, and it's just not positive. But I definitely want to open myself to all sorts of potentials, especially as somebody who's a practitioner of health and wellness and lifestyle design. And like, we're in this interesting time. Let's have dialogue about some of these esoteric concepts, because maybe there is something there.
100%, man. I mean, I think this is why through antiquity there have been mystery schools, right? And why I felt so called to get into the mystery school, because essentially what they are doing is teaching a model for ascension. And again, like, it's not like you have to go to a mystery school to learn this stuff, but trying to figure it out on your own, you might waste a lot of time, doing things that don't work. And so we only have a limited amount of time in this physical incarnation. We're infinite beings, but like, we're here now, like Ram Dass says. And so I think that, for me, very similar to what you were saying, it's like we all experience love, but I can't tell you in units of love how much I love one person versus another, but yet it still exists, And so regardless of who you are, you have experiences in your life of things that you can't really explain, with quantitative science. This is why I'm such a big fan of quantum physics, because it really is like, I think this is the reemerging of science and spirituality being two sides of the same coin and picking up where alchemy left off. And man, I mean, dude, I want to do a round 2 with you. This is fucking awesome. I can't believe it's already gone over an hour, dude. I feel like this flew by in 3 seconds. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you? Where can they become part of your community? Tell the people they can find you, man.
Yeah, on Instagram at Danny Cola Fitness. You can follow my gym Instagram, which is underground.fit, Underground Fitness Studio. You can check out my podcast, the Danny Cola Podcast, where I've had conversations with guys like Paul Chek about concepts like this. He's coming out with another book about how reality is this continuous feedback loop system.
Yes,
and
I'm so excited to read it.
Wait to like dive into that shit. But yeah, you can follow me at those channels, or don't. It's all good. This was a real pleasure, Ryan. I think what you're doing is so awesome, and it's very inspiring. And we need people like you out there. But let me ask you this. How many people really have to get their shit together in order for shit to not hit the fan, to keep this world thriving in this coherent manner? Because there's 7 billion of us, and that keeps growing. But how many of us really have to tune in to do the work to allow this to keep moving forward?
I believe I've heard the figure of between 100 million and 300 million. That once there's a tipping point, the consciousness of the planet will change. And, essentially, like, I mean, what I really think will happen is that heaven on earth and hell on earth will happen synonymously. And I think we're seeing a lot of that, right? Like, especially with the pandemic and things like that, there are people, I think I mentioned this in Highly Optimized, that are like, this was the best thing ever. And then there are people that are like, aren't you watching the news? Aren't you scared? Why aren't you in fear? Right. And it's like, well, hey, you get to create your reality, right? If you're choosing to listen to people who are essentially not getting the results you want, but you're choosing to listen to them, whose fault is that? Right. And again, I'm not here to say what's right and wrong or what's true and not true, but we have a choice. And I think that the more of us that recognize that we have a choice and a say in the matter, the faster that will happen. And so it doesn't need to be psychedelics, doesn't need to be quantum physics. It could be whatever it is for you. It could be literally going to sell hot dogs on the beach if that's what makes you happy. But the more people that start doing what their heart is calling for and start living their own life and individuating, as Carl Jung talks about, I think the faster we'll get to that point. And so, I think we're both on this same wavelength of like, how can we help people figure out what their ultimate favorite, amazing, fulfilling life is, whatever that is. I'm unattached to whatever people think it is. If it's not psychedelics, cool. I'm still 100% down to talk about whatever it is. If it's Christianity, if it's Judaism, whatever it is, if it makes you really happy, that's, I think, what people need to tune into. And the more they get to that point, I think I've heard the figure of 100 to 300 million. The faster we can get to that point, and the faster we can all start operating and moving from scientific materialism into the next chapter of holism, which really represents returning to the way that the animists looked at the world, where everything is alive, everything is God. And so therefore, we need to join together because we have bigger problems at hand, like extinction and things like that.
I love that. And I think I'm going to start writing those numbers down into my manifestation notebooks, the 100 million to 300 million, and start writing down like collective manifestations, because like during the pandemic, opening up a gym during the whole like mask, no mask, vaccine, are you vaccinated bullshit that got me so wired up. Like I got to listen to my heart. I'm going to put my foot down where I have to put my foot down. I'm going to keep rocking and rolling. But like during that time, I found myself writing in my notebook where it's like, we're going to come back to a coherent time. We're going to come back to a place where we're all working together. I just want to get more specific on the numbers, like 100 million, 300 million. Okay, if that's it, but I'm going to keep writing that down, and I'm going to be searching for those all 100 million to 300 million and trying to connect with whoever those folks are, and to keep like, coherently mixing people together, emotions together that are of higher vibration to co-create higher levels of living, lifestyle design, existence, so that we could really thrive in this digital age, as opposed to be taken in by it or whatever it is, like letting it take over you rather.
Yes. And you know how we bring this all home, man? You know what the best part is? I got stuck in this for a while. I know we talked about this a little bit in Highly Optimized. And I know for people listening, you might be going, what can I do? There's so much stuff that, I feel needs to change. What can I do? All you need to do is focus on figuring out what makes you the happiest. Because when you vibrate at a level where you are full of joy and you are doing what you love and you get to be who you love, the right people will find you who are ready to listen at this time. And those are the only people you need to worry about. And if we all do that, if we all put our best foot forward to be exactly who we're meant to be and not be people pleasers and say what's coming from our heart and not worry about any criticism, then the faster we'll get to that number. And that's what really fires me up every day. And that's what allows me, we talked about this in the last episode for everyone listening. That's what allows me to constantly go, no, I am going to say what's coming from my heart. And I'm not going to worry about what people say, because at the end of the day, the right people will be able to find me. And that's how I found the right people, right? Because Paul Chek's not afraid of what people think about him. That's how I found him, right? And I think that the people who aren't right for me, hey, that's fine. They'll find someone else that resonates with them, and it's all good, And so I love that, man. It's really powerful. Danny, I got one last question for you too, if you're up for it. Sure. So say if someone listened to this episode and they're extremely fired up to look into psychedelics in their own experience of life, what is the one piece of advice that Danny Cola would ask to be able to allow them to use the proper discernment in choosing if psychedelics are right for them in their lives?
Oh man, that's such a hard question. I don't know. Because like everyone has their own individual experiences with it. I would say like patient. If it does call to you, I'm sorry, my Siri keeps popping up.
You're good.
If psychedelics do call to you, having a real intention with it, being patient. There's so many things, prepping yourself beforehand, like breath work, fasting. I've had some really amazing psychedelic experiences when I've been fasted, like specifically with MDMA. There was one time where I was just sitting outside of my house and it was like 3 p.m. I was fasted. I worked out. I was in my home, and dude, like it was so amazing. I had my playlist. I was writing. I wrote for like 90 pages. I swear to God. And I go back to those pages. I couldn't stop. The pen just kept going. And there were such amazing thoughts. And I go back to those pages and it just fuels me up. So patience, make sure you have the right intention, make sure you're in the right setting, make sure you have the right people around. I didn't talk about the one mushroom trip that I had that I just, I just kept eating them, and I took 7 grams, and I was having the worst experience ever. And I thought I died. I had those, everyone has those experiences, but they could go really bad, and like, if anyone really wants to get into them, I would do your research. I would really just be patient and find the right time, and, be with the right people, set your intentions, set the perfect setting for yourself. And, that's it. Like, integrate it afterwards too. It's not just like, oh dude, we had the best time. I had the best visions and all. Like, I think that's irresponsible. And I'm guilty of having such irresponsible, experiences myself. So in this new world, in this new age where psychedelics is an ally, it's patience, it's intention, it's the right setting, it's prepping yourself for it. So meditation, getting your body in the right way, because it's a physical thing too, right? Like, it's hard. Like, there are times where I've had LSD journeys and mushroom journeys where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, I'm physically drained. And it's like, this hurts. I'm just tired of thinking about this and that and this. It's just hard. And like, if your body isn't physically set up for it too, like, it could be hard. And I don't want to scare anybody. But yeah, it's such an open-ended question. God, just like I said, have the right intention, prep yourself for it as best as possible, and find ways to integrate. Dude. Like, then it actually makes sense. It's not just like a stupid, we did mushrooms. No, dude, it's like, find a way to integrate what the mushrooms taught you. They're all teachers. I think anything that unfolds in your life is a teaching moment. And there are several different perspectives to look at how situations unfold. And that's it, man. Ryan, thank you so much for your time, dude. You're the freaking man. I felt like I've known you in another life. And I remember I had like 2 hours just kind of flew by, 2+ hours just flew by, and it was nothing. And that's the timeless. Dude. You don't know what time is on psychedelics. This felt timeless. And that means something that was beautiful taking place. I really
Dude, I love that, man. And, something I like to say is, it takes the man to recognize the man, right? Paul Chek says it, if you spot it, you got it. And I really thank you, man. Like, this is, one of the most profound experiences I've ever had podcasting these last 2 hours, man. And I hope everyone listening and enjoyed it. And what I'll say in finale, guys, is that, as I stated in the intro, whenever I meet someone, like Danny, who I can converse with as easily as I have with him, I am eager and excited to have a proper heart flow sesh on the show. Danny is a living example of what can happen when we choose to connect with psychedelics and plant medicines with the necessary intention and groundwork necessary to be able to successfully integrate our experiences after our journeys with these medicines have concluded. And for anyone looking to buy the ticket and take the ride in the Danny's world, make sure to check out the show notes, where I will be listing all of the best ways to arrive at that destination today. Danny, thank you so much for sharing your time and experiences on the show today, for doing the work you're doing both in yourself and for those you serve to make the world a healthier, happier place, and for being a source of inspiration in my life to continue doing the work I am doing to reach the same common goal. And until next time, my brother, may your journey be smooth and full of light. Aho.